Before we get to the almighty Hypno Toad, I've got to express a little bit of gratitude. Over the past week and a half or so, both my TikTok and my YouTube have blown up and gotten roughly 250 extra followers on both. It's been insane. On top of that, I've gotten my very first two patrons, Deface and Zephyr. You guys kick ass. I can't even believe it. You guys are helping this weird nerd make his dreams come true. To anybody who hasn't seen yet, I do have a Patreon. If you love what I do here and you want to see more and you want to see this channel get bigger, have gameplay added, that type of stuff, please go over there and join these two amazing people. My Discord's on there, as well as when I do produce gameplay. It's going to be up on my Patreon first, and then YouTube following after some amount of time. I haven't decided yet. But I'm just over the moon. This has been absolutely insane, and I'm so grateful to everybody. So, with no further waiting, let's get on with this. Let's kick this portal into overdrive, shall we? I have been told to introduce our hero, the Hypno Toad, for two, a green and a blue. He is a legendary toad. Ignore the typing. Whenever a frog you control attacks, mill 3 cards. Whenever a permanent card is put into your graveyard from your library, exile it with a croak counter on it. You may play lands and cast spells from among cards you own in exile with croak counters on them. Oh shit, that was weird. Anyway, this deck is a little different. The power level and the rule 0 for this deck is weird, for sure. The Hypno Toad demands obedience and plays with your opponent's deck, meaning that this deck may not be your playgroup's favorite. And the power level is whatever the power level of the table is. It's a weird one, for sure. All glory to the Hypno Toad. The Hypno Toad will make your opponents obey. Alright. Whoever's idea it was for me to mess around with mind-controlling toads, we need to have words, because this is getting weird. We claim victory with this deck by letting the Hypno Toad win with our opponent's decks. I'm a little frazzled. Mind control's weird. This is the perfect time to remind you that this is a crossover-themed build. With that being said, crucial cards for the theme will be added regardless of price. Cards that are not essential to fit the theme will be made as budget-friendly as possible. First things first, let's get through the mana base so we can see how this deck functions. We've got Quandrix Campus, Hinterland Harbor, Botanical Sanctum, Simic Growth Chamber. Then we have Vine Glimmer Snarl, Command Tower, Dreamroot Cascade, and Reliquary Tower. Now, Reliquary Tower is super important in this deck because we are going to be getting a lot of cards. Get to that later. Waterlogged Grove, Rejuvenating Spring, 6 forests, and 20 islands. The Hypno Toad has demanded that we include Soul Ring, Collective Voyage, New Frontiers, Arcane Signet, as well as Rampant Growth, 3 visits, Awakening Zone, and Cultivate. Clear the Land is especially useful, as well as Kodama's Reach, Heartbeat of Spring, and Rites of Flourishing. Search for Tomorrow, Primal Growth, Explosive Vegetation, and Frontier Siege will also be included on orders of the Hypno Toad. Girapur Orrery, Tempt with Discovery, Dictate of Karametra, primeval bounty and boundless realms will allow the Hypno Toad's plans to come to fruition with all of the ability to cast his spells. Oh, this is, okay. I have been allowed to speak for myself to get the rest of this deck out. If you ever thought you worked for a crappy boss, the Hypnotoad is... I'm not going to say that. I love working for the Hypnotoad. Anyway, moving on. For the creatures in this deck, we only have 4 of them, but they are very, very important. We have Biovisionary for 1, a green and a blue. At the beginning of the end step, if you control 4 or more creatures named Biovisionary, you win the game. And then we have Beguiler of Wills for 3 and 2 blue. Gain control of target creature with power less than or equal to the number of creatures you control. And then Deadeye Navigator for 4 and 2 blue has Soul Bond. And as long as Deadeye Navigator is paired with another creature, each of those creatures has, for 1 and a blue, exile this creature, then return it to the battlefield under your control. And this is going to pair wonderfully with Agent of Treachery. For 5 and 2 blue, when Agent of Treachery enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent. And at the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, you draw 3 cards. Like I said, there's not many creatures in this deck. For 1, because we're going to be stealing all of our opponent's stuff. And for 2, these creatures are important. Alright, so if the ramp package didn't help make this clear, the idea here is that we are trying to allow our opponents to ramp as much as we are, and to get as many cards as we do, because all of their cards will further their board state, and all of their cards will further our board state. That's how this deck works. So, to that end, we have Hypergenesis. It's one of those suspend cards. It has suspend 3 for 1, a green and a green. And it says, starting with you, each player may put an artifact, creature, enchantment, or land from his or her hand into play. Repeat this process until no one puts cards into play. And then Mind's Aglow is for 1 blue, and it has Join Forces. Starting with you, each player may pay any amount of mana. Each player draws X cards, where X is the total amount of mana paid this way. And then Prosperity for X and a blue, each player draws X cards. And then Skyscribing for X and 2 blue, each player draws X cards, but it also has the Forecast ability for 2 and a blue. It says reveal Skyscribing from your hand, each player draws a card. And then Fascination for X and 2 blue, choose 1, each player draws X cards, or each player puts the top X cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Then we have Dictate of Crewfix for 1 and 2 blue. It has Flash, and at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. Then we have Propaganda for 2 and a blue, as well as Collective Restraint for 3 and a blue. Each of them are going to make it to where creatures can't attack us unless their controller pays 2 for each attacking creature. Now, this is going to help save us just in case we haven't quite gotten our mind controlling on, or in case our opponents have ramped way further than we have and we just can't keep up quite yet. These will help us stabilize. And then Sakashima's Will for 3 and a blue. It says, choose 1 if you control a commander. As you cast the spell, you may choose both. Target opponent chooses a creature they control. You gain control of it. And choose a creature you control. Each other creature you control becomes a copy of that creature until end of turn. Now this has a spicy combo with the Biovisionary from earlier. Basically, if you have 4 creatures on the field, you can make all of them Biovisionaries. And then his ability will go onto the stack at the beginning of the end step, winning you the game, because the creatures will remain copies of Biovisionary until the cleanup phase of your end step, which happens afterwards. Nifty interaction here. Then we have Forced Fruition for 4 and 2 blue. Whenever an opponent plays a spell, that player draws 7 cards. This is helping us along that plan to make sure they're playing their stuff so that we can play their stuff. And then Well of Ideas for 5 and a blue. When Well of Ideas enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards. And at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. At the beginning of your draw step, draw 2 additional cards. And then Infinite Reflections is a slightly more expensive copy of that same effect that we talked about with Sakashima's Will earlier. It says enchant creature. When Infinite Reflections enters the battlefield attached to a creature, each other non-token creature you control becomes a copy of that creature. And then non-token creatures that enter the battlefield enter as a copy of that creature. So again, it'll allow us for an end-turn victory with the Biovisionary. And then Swarm Intelligence for 6 and a blue. It says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may copy that spell. You may choose a new target for the copy. This will allow us to double up on all of our spells that take control of other people's stuff. All glory to the Hypno Toad. The Hypno Toad will control all of your opponent's permanents with inevitable betrayal. It has a suspend of 3 and a cost of 1 and 2 blue. Search target opponent's library for a creature card and put that card onto the battlefield under your control. Then that player shuffles. Carry Away for 2 blue. When Carry Away comes into play, unattach enchanted equipment. You control enchanted equipment. And then Fumble for 1 and a blue. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Gain control of all auras and equipment that were attached to it. Then attach them to another creature. Steal Enchantment for 2 blue. Gain control of enchanted enchantment. Entrancing Melody for X and 2 blue. Gain control of target creature with converted mana cost X. Domineer for 1 and 2 blue. You control enchanted artifact creature. Archmage's Charm for 3 blue mana. Choose 1 counter target spell. Target player draws 2 cards. Gain control of target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 1 or less. Vidalcan Shackles for 3 generic mana. You may choose not to untap Vidalcan Shackles during your unstep. For 2 and a tap, gain control of target creature with power less than or equal to the number of islands you control for as long as Vidalcan Shackles remain tapped. Then the almighty Hypno Toad requires the play of Abduction for 2 and 2 blue. When Abduction comes into play, untap enchanted creature. You control enchanted creature. When enchanted creature is put into a graveyard, return that creature to play under its owner's control. And then Reigns of Power for 2 and 2 blue. Untap all creatures you control and all creatures target opponent controls. You and that opponent each gain control of all creatures the other controls until end of turn. Those creatures gain haste until end of turn. Control Magic for 2 and 2 blue. Enchant creature. You control enchanted creature. And Steal Artifact for 2 and 2 blue. You control enchanted artifact. Okay, my assistant has just trapped the Hypno Toad. I am free to finish the rest of this deck. Oh my god, this has been weird. Okay, we've got Tempted by the Auric for 1 and 3 blue. For each opponent, gain control of up to 1 target creature or planeswalker that player controls with mana value 3 or less. And then we have Mass Manipulation for 2x and 4 blue. Gain control of X target creatures and or planeswalkers. We're not going to have a problem casting this because we're going to have mountains of mana in this deck. And then we have Corrupted Conscience for 3 and 2 blue. Enchant creature. You control enchanted creature, and enchanted creature has infect. You know that big beefy guy that your opponent's been building up? Yeah, steal that and knock him out with it. And then we have Mind Control for 3 and 2 blue. Enchant creature. You control enchanted creature. Then we've got Persuasion for 3 and 2 blue. It says enchant creature. You control enchanted creature. Then we have Aether Snatch for 4 and 2 blue. gain control of target spell. You may choose new targets for it. If that spell becomes a permanent and it enters the battlefield on your side of the field. And then gather specimens for 3 and 3 blue. If a creature would come into play under an opponent's control this turn, it comes into play under your control instead. And then mirror match for 4 and 2 blue. It says cast mirror match only during the declare blocker step. For each creature attacking you or a planeswalker you control, put a token that's a copy of that creature onto the battlefield blocking that creature. Exile those tokens at the end of combat. This is the only kind of board wipe that we have in the deck, and it's really just to save our own skin in the thick of it. And then we've got Blatant Thievery for 4 and 3 blue. For each opponent, gain control of target permanent that player controls. And then Commandeer for 5 and 2 blue. You may remove 2 blue cards in your hand from the game rather than pay the Commandeer's mana cost. And you gain control of target non-creature spell, and you may choose a new target for it. If it's permanent, it comes onto the battlefield under your control. And then Take Possession for 5 and 2 blue. It has Split Second. As long as this spell is on the stack, players can't cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. And it enchants a permanent, and you control enchant a permanent. This is a nice way to kind of end a counter war. If you're trying to steal that creature and they keep countering you. And then Expropriate for 7 and 2 blue. It says Council's Dilemma. Starting with you, each player votes for time or money. For each time vote, take an extra turn after this one. For each money vote, choose a permanent owned by the voter and gain control of it, and then you exile Expropriate. And then Eternal Dominion for 7 and 3 blue. Search target opponent's library for an artifact, creature, enchantment, or land card. Put that card into play under your control. Then that player shuffles his or her library. And it has Epic. For the rest of the game, you can't play spells, and at the beginning of each of your upkeep, copy this spell except for its Epic ability, and you may choose a new target for the copy. Once we get to this level of mana, we're basically just searching through our opponent's deck and stealing the best things possible. Alright, well that's the end of the deck, and we got through it without another interruption. Now that was a strange one. Now that we've gotten through it though, the average price of this deck at the time of release is priceless, and you should buy it. Okay, that's gotta stop. Oh, I'm so glad we're almost done with this one. It's between $204 and $270, depending on where you purchase from. As always, if you go with damaged or heavily played cards, you can get it cheaper than that. The stats for the deck, we've got 23 ramps, 0 tutors, 11 forms of card draw. Basically everything in the deck is interaction. We've got 0 board wipes because we want our opponents to have lots of stuff on board, and we've got 36 lands to make sure we can power everything out. Holy crap. Remember, this is a crossover themed build. With that being said, crucial cards for the theme were added regardless of price. Cards that were not essential to fit the theme were made as budget-friendly as possible. If you want to optimize this list, feel free to leave your upgrades in the comments section below. Most importantly, this deck is meant to be a new and engaging way to spice up your Commander games, so fun is the top priority. Thank you for watching this crossover deck tech. If you liked this video, check out our other content on YouTube or TikTok. Your viewership means the multiverse to the crossover commander, and if you would like to become a part of this growing Terran reality, you can like, share, and subscribe. If you would like to vote on the next pop culture character to crossover, check out our Patreon where we have some awesome perks. If you have any ideas or complaints, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. Now that this portal's closing, see you next time.